Yeah, and we provide like a very like that middleware where you don't have this whole robust UI and everything. It's just literally feeding it. Still using all of our, compliance rules. We have the ability to access, different filters as well through it and do all of that good stuff and deliver crisp, clean media. We can even do stereo files. We can do transcription and just deliver it in a nice packaged format for you to do your analysis or feed any of your AI engines that you're looking to feed.
Hi, and welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This week we are going deep on Teams compliance recording. Microsoft has a certification process, an API, and an SDK for solutions. And I talked to Michael at Numonix about how that certification process works, what types of customers need compliance recording, how you can choose between solutions, questions to ask, options to consider, and also how solutions have to keep up with the changes in Teams and Microsoft 365, including some interesting scenarios around large meetings. Many thanks to Michael for taking the time out to jump on the podcast and for all his support. We really appreciate it. On with the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This is a show I've been wanting to do for a while. I have so many good conversations with Michael on the complexities of Teams recording and the challenges of keeping up with the API. So this show, we're going to get it all on the record, which will be fun. Michael, how are you doing? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm Michael Levy. I'm the CEO of Numonix. We've been in recording for too long that I'd like to remember, but seen it all, done it all, and very happy to be here with Tom. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Appreciate you joining the show. So I guess the level set for everybody listening, Teams has recording in the box, the kind of convenience recording. And then we've got this separate thing, which is certified third-party solutions for compliance recording. So can you just take us through what the differences of those two scenarios are?
So I would say the main difference is I don't think Microsoft is a compliance recording company to be at the start. I think the complexities of what it is to be compliant in the recording world in terms of the encryption, roles-based access, data security, GDPR, all that sort of good stuff when it comes to recording and the simple intricacies. I think convenience recording within Microsoft is just not there. It involves someone enabling it manually.
Yeah.
I know there are some auto rules now that are available, but in essence, it's not storing it in a central location that is encrypted or available based on a need to know basis. It's controlled often by the user instead of a company policy. And there are many different intricacies. Where's the data stored? Which region is it recorded in? So you have all those complexities because we've seen some crazy stuff develop over the last few years in terms of the rules in terms of recording, where it's stored, how you accessing it, is it worm storage? There's so many different
Yeah,
things.
the regulations and requirements.
Yeah.
So for Teams, when we talk about convenience recording, and you're right, Teams have made this line very clear. Like there are some modes now where you can sort of pre-set up meeting templates to say auto transcribe, auto record, but that's still a convenience recording in the sense of it goes to the user's OneDrive. The user can edit it, delete it, remove it, stop it mid-call. Whereas on a compliance recording scenario, it's out of the user's hands. The admin has decided these calls, and we'll talk about how you can do clever filters on different types of calls with Numonix, but these calls are always recorded. The user can't touch the recording, even to the point where there's an option of strict mode, which is Teams will literally stop allowing the user to make and receive calls if recording isn't working. So some orgs go as far as my users are not allowed to make a call if the recording platform is not in action.
Yeah, true. And one other one that I find as well is you can only record a meeting through convenience recording if you're from the domain that has set up the meeting. What happens if you join a meeting that you have to record, but you're not from the domain? You can't record that meeting. So we found that in a lot of cases, I'm sure many people are familiar with it, where you've joined a meeting from someone else, and it's like, you know what, I have to record this, and
Yeah.
there's no button visible to start recording or it's grayed out.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Teams does really well, actually, with its model where it's got bots following you as a recorded user, that the bot will follow you even to somebody else's meeting and record that. If you're it's about you being recorded as the user rather than the scenario in that case.
Correct. And what I find also interesting, so I know we're going to get to it potentially, but some of the rules we do, one rule in particular is external participant, where we had a bank in Europe that wanted to only record meetings if there were external parties to their company joining the meeting, so an exterior domain, PSTN, or guest. And we noticed through a customer, I believe it was in Australia, that there were calls being recorded even only when there were internal parties on the meeting. And eventually, through some research, we found that it triggered people were bringing the Microsoft convenience bot into the call, and that's actually seen as an external party to the meeting. So
Because
it
it's
triggers
external of the
meetings. So it's
tenant,
actually
isn't it?
having,
Yeah.
yeah, it's having an external party in the meeting when you have that bot in.
That's really interesting. So we talk about regulatory requirements. Actually, I spend a lot of time, obviously, as you know, talking to enterprises in the industry and trying to compare solutions. And you see some of these solutions saying they're HIPAA or they're Dodd-Frank or they're MiFID II, but that's not really it, is it? The solutions enable that capability. Maybe you could take us through some of those. We don't have to go through all of them because I know they're super deep, but what are some of the common regulatory frameworks that lead to customers needing to be recorded?
So in Europe, specifically in the UK, we see MiFID II being a requirement, and they've seen that for many years. I've yet to see, and I stand to be corrected, a body that will say, come test your stuff and your recorder is MiFID II compliant or certified. I always say that we are an aid to helping you as an organization remain MiFID II compliant. And we have the abilities to make you and help you achieve compliance, as well as with HIPAA, which is healthcare regulations in most countries, where protecting patient information, only allowing certain people to play back and listen to calls, encryption. Again, very difficult to say a recorder has achieved a HIPAA stamp, but you can certainly have your features being HIPAA compliant and enable a hospital, doctor's room, or whatever to be HIPAA compliant. And finally, the big one is GDPR. Like, do you provide the ability that someone is not recorded if they request not to be recorded? Can you get rid of a record? Now, many companies in the recording space can delete a recording record, but it's a mission. You have to notify the company. How do you identify the call? Because everything's supposed to be, hashed out. We don't
Yeah.
see a lot of data. So we've built features, for example, our GDPR delete feature, besides our GDPR cancel, which we have in a Teams app. But our GDPR delete feature, we have the ability that you can request through a workflow within our platform, the ability to delete a call. It runs through a workflow. You have a compliance officer who can, approve or reject it. Even once they've approved it, it can still be cancelled through a workflow, and then log that and have it able to be audited as well.
That's awesome. It's good to understand that. Is that when you're choosing a solution that there are standards or regulations or requirements your organization's looking to meet, and these solutions enable that capability. And then there's other certifications of the solution or the solution company. So your ISOs, your SOC 2 type stuff. And that is, and again, you have to be quite careful here. Is it the company that's certified for that, or the particular solution, or the infrastructure it runs on? But those are where you might say, I want a SOC 2 solution for my company, like i.e. that solution has been certified.
Absolutely. And again, those are ISO, SOC, those are all very common ones. SOC being the reason I shaved today, so you wouldn't see the gray from our SOC that we got. But yeah, so SOC, really the platform gets the attestation. It's not really a certification, but more of a attestation, and depends if you're doing SOC 2, which is, you have to maintain it, and ISO as well. We've seen I would say 30 to 40% of the battle with working with customers to get to that, providing our solution is a security review. Everybody nowadays is security review, and the SOC 2 makes it a lot easier, because I think if you can show that you've been through those rigorous controls, testing, and that you comply with all of them, I think it makes it so much easier. I know the stress we used to go through to get through these security things, and now with the SOC 2, it's like we have SOC 2. Okay, that should be easy. Let's,
Yeah,
let's
that's an agreed bar between organisations that everybody understands, and specifically when you're talking about SOC 2, there's two types as well, aren't there? Can you take us through that?
Yeah, there's just a short step, which is the type one, which is really just your controls, and then there's type two, where you actually go through the audits and have to prove that you maintain those controls every year to maintain it. You get an ISO, and it's like our ISO is 3 year valid, so they trust that within 3 years things are going to be maintained. But SOC is really rigorous. It's like a full audit. You
Yeah.
get audited like big public company that has its financials audited. You have people doing a full audit on you.
That's great to understand. So Microsoft have this API that solutions can use, and then they have a certification process, and there's about 12 vendors who are certified with different solutions on there. As much as you can share, what does that certification process look like? How do you as a solution get on that list?
So it's extremely rigorous. There are firstly financial commitments to Microsoft that you have to make to be part of it. And I think one of the reasons they do it is because they don't just want 100 companies just signing up and having their name on a list. So there's a
Yeah.
big financial commitment to it. You're committing to having Premier support because um, they need a specific mechanism to pass through support tickets to their engineering teams. So if you just take the SDK and develop on it, that's all very well and good. But if you get into an environment that there are issues in your team's environment, and Microsoft notices, a third-party application or a bot or whatever, you're going to struggle to get support because they like to know that it's a supported product within the infrastructure. So, and they won't pass it through to Premier support either, or directly through their product team if you don't have it. So, there's certification where you have to do an M365 security certification, which is just about as rigorous as a SOC 2, just no official audit, but it's rigorous.
That's good to know.
Again, SOC 2 helps those sort of audits, because if you have a SOC 2, then that's pretty standard to get done. There's testing. They have third-party companies that run you through rigorous testing, and that testing changes because there's certain features and support for things like we'll discuss grouping, or bot grouping and delta roster, which will come through where you have to certify on as well. So there are always changes to the SDK. There's new features we've spoken about before, like the targeting of queues for teams, supporting metadata in conference mode. There's always something, and that's also again why we spend so much time focusing on the capture piece and haven't really taken our eye off that ball at all.
And that let's talk about those changes, because that's really interesting as well. People might not understand is you get certified at a point in time, but the API and the team story is constantly evolving. Teams will change its capabilities in terms of meeting features or audio in the case of the Queues app with the Barge and Whisper going on, transfer mode. And yeah, over the years, we've jumped on LinkedIn and talked about some of these changes. But how do you work with Microsoft to deal with those changes, and how can customers understand if their solution is keeping up with those changes?
So interestingly enough, your change pilot tool works very well, where you're able to understand what's coming. I know last year it pointed out something that caught everyone off guard, which was great.
Yeah, we like to keep an eye on all the changes. That's good to hear.
Exactly. Yeah. So from the perspective, as you know, technology is moving every day. I even remember from the Skype for Business days, one day we woke up and there were issues in Skype for Business, which is a very different animal altogether. But we heard that there was a change to the client, which completely broke messaging, and we had to all scramble quickly. In those days, there wasn't much information on it.
But at least in those days, we had like CUs and version numbers. You could be like, oh, this version number has gone from this to this, something happened. It's all a bit of opaque in the cloud, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's where we'd look first, believe it or not. When doing troubleshooting, check the version numbers, see when the last, but we never had a heads up. With credit to Microsoft now, we have, if you're part of the certified group, you're a member of a Teams channel where they're posting updates, what's going to come, what's going to happen. They're not always happening on time, according to the timelines that we would
sounds
like.
about right.
But In fairness to them, they do notify us of things that are coming. For example, Teams queue, targeting of Teams queue and conference mode. And believe it or not, they ask us for feedback as well. And we provide a ton of feedback to them. I would like to think we're probably, and I know you'll probably have competitors of ours shouting out loud, but I'd like to think we're very, very involved in helping Microsoft, because we've seen it a lot. May 19th, 2020, when the API went GA, we were out there recording the very first day, seeing everything. So we've seen a lot you do encounter in the field. We've encountered things recently that we've noticed, and some of them don't have anything to do even with the recording SDK. It's an Azure component that might affect the recording SDK,
Right.
or where you're running your bot, which then doesn't play well, and then there's a lot of scrambling in the back end to resolve these things. So it's challenging. But again, I know I'm saying this with a biased hat on, but if you're considering recording as a company, you have to use someone who is a certified platform, even if it's just to record for quality management, not even for compliance, because there are changes that can affect your environment from Microsoft that will affect your recorder. And if you're not keeping up, you're going to miss things.
And I think that certified is definitely the minimum bar, but then it's a conversation with that vendor and that solution. And some of the things we're going to talk about are good examples of things that have changed. If you can ask them, were you aware of this? How did you deal with that? And it's as much as, are you talking to somebody who knows the detail, who's involved in the product versus a generic salesperson. But on that note, let's talk about large meetings, because that was one of the most interesting challenges in recent times. So what happened there?
Yeah, so and this is something interesting actually that happened right up front. It was a big statement during COVID about meeting resources, and you probably know better than me. I think initially, without having that special license, you could only have 250 participants being in a meeting, or 300. I don't remember exactly the number. And bringing a bot into the meeting for a recorded user is basically an additional participant. So if you had 100, let's say the number for argument's sake is 300.
Yeah, it was
And you had
250. I think it was
100.
250 initially, and then they bumped it up, if I remember rightly. But yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
it got bumped up a little bit. If you had that other license now, which I don't remember, was you could take it over 1,000. It's
Yeah,
still available. That was the license originally that they were going to make as a requirement to use compliance recording, until everyone freaked out and eventually the community got Microsoft to change its mind.
yeah.
Yeah, so what would happen is, if you had 150 targeted users join a meeting, then automatically you had 300 participants. If you had 200, then you had 400.
Yeah,
And if you
because that's
didn't
the
have that,
bots. The bots were 1-to-1 at that time. So if I'm a recorded user, my bot follows me everywhere. It takes a media stream for the duration of which I was in the meeting, and therefore that's the compliance scenario. But as you're saying, then that scaling starts to get pretty crazy pretty quickly if you're a bigger customer doing bigger meetings that all the users are recorded.
absolutely. And we've seen it. We have customers, they might not do them every day, but they have an all hands meeting on a Monday morning and on a Friday morning or Thursday morning. And while we did build filters that could stop people from being recorded in a meeting, so you could say, don't record a meeting if there's a specific keyword in the title, maybe all hands, and maybe you only have one group that records it. However, that doesn't solve problems. It to an extent it does, but lo and behold, when everyone gets there, even if you're blocking them, it signals and there's a spike, because you have all these people. The bot doesn't just know it before, the bot knows it when it gets there. So it has to deal with that traffic. So before you even get to the grouping of bots, you still have to deal with spikes in activity on the bot, because you've got a ton of people, and they can be pretty crazy, those spikes. That's what I hear about often, even more than even from other recording companies. Believe it or not, I have a friendly relationship with many recording companies, and we talk. We try and make it better for the industry. And
Yeah.
one of the common things are spikes, where people, now fortunately we've developed secret sources to deal with these things, in our cloud native platform. But the other issue is, let's say everyone is joining, how do you deal with it? And that's where Microsoft did grouping. where you can group multiple people in an individual company or domain to a bot. So you can put 100 people on one bot, and that significantly reduces. It doesn't reduce that spike again. You still have the spikes,
Yeah.
but you reduce that load and are able to record larger meetings. Now, that doesn't happen in isolation. There's another feature which was made aware is to improve the performance in the Teams clients. From 70 plus users, the roster events are not as robust. It doesn't deliver every time a new person joins a meeting or something happens because there's just way too much activity going on. So that's another one we discovered, that audio, there were some workarounds, but when you got to video and screen sharing, it provided complications. And they've now provided support in something called Delta Roster, which measures the changes in the roster, hence Delta Roster, above those 70 users, so we can successfully monitor who's joining and going where and leaving at certain times. But the combination of grouping and Delta Roster provides for that solution to be able to have these 100 plus meetings with targeted Teams users.
And these are changes Microsoft are making in the platform and the API and the SDK, but these are also changes you need to then invest in your solution to support these new capabilities. So all the solutions are on this journey of keeping up with Microsoft changes, implementing the changes on their own timeline. Is there anything in the certification that says you've got to do it in X time, or you've got to do by Y? How's that work?
Correct. Now, so that's been made mandatory as part of the new certification program for this year, is you have to be compliant with grouping and Delta Roster as well. So fortunately, it is. We've been supporting it now for some time. So we have clients using it. We helped work through it many years ago. We had a large financial who had this issue 2 years ago, and we were fortunate to be able to work through it already back then. But yes, absolutely, it's part of the new certification test plans. Grouping and Delta Roster are definitely part of them.
That's great. And so if you're choosing a solution, these are the kind of things you can talk to vendors about, like how are they dealing with that? What are their timescales? What's their commitment? Because that's really important.
And something you and I talk about often, references. Don't be scared to ask us to take you to references. We're very happy to do it.
Yeah, that's always my immediate shortcut when I'm talking to solution providers, is like give me three names. And fortunately, there's a lot of people in our community, so we can cross-reference all this stuff, and the enterprises are very happy to help their peers in particular. Like nobody wants to go through any pain. So if there's one thing to take away from this podcast in choosing a solution, you can't beat a suitable reference. Similar complexity, similar scale is always the way to go.
Yes, absolutely.
What about, like, in terms of looking again between solutions, like types of media collected? Does everybody collect everything, or do different solutions? When I say everything, I'm talking about audio, video, chat, screen share. How's that work?
So I know chat is not part of the same SDK that the compliance recording is part of. So let's segment it into audio, video, screen sharing. I'm not aware if all three. Well, audio for sure is part of it, but I'm not aware about screen sharing and video if it's part of certification. That's something we can take up another time. But it is something we support. We support it as a standard included product in any of our versions. So yes, I would say that everyone should give you the ability, because in compliance now there's not only audio compliance but visual. You don't know. We've had some interesting conversations where people, for example, are saying, "Don't buy that share." Don't buy that share.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Red tie means do the opposite of what I'm saying to do for compliance reasons. Those kind of things.
Well, I'll tell you just on a side thread, and this is something we can maybe have another discussion at another time, is I've seen some interesting technology recently as well that are now doing deepfake detection as well on meetings for Teams,
interesting.
as well as and real time, as well as post call processing for deepfake and voice authentication, so biometrics. So it's really interesting because the stuff we're seeing in terms of deepfake are crazy these days.
Yeah, they're getting better and better, and there have been some news stories about people being duped by them. So that's definitely going to be a thing.
And some of the tricks are amazing. I know I saw recently a video where there was someone doing an interview for a job, and the person doing the interview identified that something was strange and said to the guy, "Put your hand in front of your face," because with all the filters and things, they had a face
Yeah,
filter
yeah,
on.
yeah. To try
And the
and trick.
guy put his hand there and everywhere except in front of his face, and then just killed the meeting because they could tell. So there's some cool little tricks that I've heard from some of the companies we're speaking to that do it. Cool little tricks of how they do their magic, and
Yeah.
it's very interesting.
And we won't go too far off topic, but you're into that world in the sense of you have an option on your platform to be a compliant media collector for other solutions, don't you? TRAS. So you can be the compliant or certified, I should say, middleware to pull that data out for CRM gathering tools or information gathering tools, so they don't have to do the hard work of tying into Microsoft and getting
Absolutely.
supported.
So we're seeing it more and more, these CI platforms, revenue intelligence, whatever, even just large companies wanting to, build their own co-pilots that need to collect data to feed them. We're seeing that more and more. And the days of, they obviously can build their own SDKs, but do you really want to go and hire multiple engineers to build them, maintain them, because they're changing all the time? Then you hit big meetings, you got to develop grouping, Delta
Yeah,
roster.
and
So
like you said, the supportability scenario. If something goes wrong with the team's infrastructure, is it you? Is it them? You're not going to get any support from Microsoft. So for
exactly.
experimenting, maybe, but in any kind of production, I think it's going to be much easier to leverage the work you guys have done.
Yeah, and we provide like a very like that middleware where you don't have this whole robust UI and everything. It's just literally feeding it. Still using all of our compliance rules. We have the ability to access different filters as well through it and do all of that good stuff and deliver crisp, clean media. We can even do stereo files. We can do transcription and just deliver it in a nice packaged format for you to do your analysis or feed any of your AI engines that you're looking to feed.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen a big uptick in the recording conversation precisely because of that AI capture. And we were talking to Microsoft on a different call yesterday, and they said that their native transcriptions are under amazing scrutiny now. Like people took it or leave it before, but now because of AI, people are all over a quality transcription to pull those insights and that meeting summary out.
Well, that's another interesting topic because remember, we use cognitive services, Microsoft, for everything. We're so deeply baked in. Any little action happening in our platform on our services, it's a Microsoft something in the back end. But important to note is we liked it also because it was able to maintain that region and compliance picture. So if someone was in the UK and they needed transcription, we know that the engine was sitting in the UK. Even though the call was going into transcription, it was never leaving the area. Now, you might have a vendor that's not using it. Where is that transcription being transcribed? Because the media has to go there to be
Yeah,
transcribed. Is it staying in within reason? When you're doing your compliance, are you just saying you got transcription? Yes, your recording is staying in the UK. Yeah, but in that little piece when it's being transcribed, where is it going? Maybe your platform is Azure based, but you have a server sitting on prem in a data center. Have you checked their data center, that there's security controls there? Because that's all the stuff that encompasses compliance. Do you have cameras in the data center? Do you have access control? So there's a lot more, especially when you're using transcription, other tools. And that's why we think very carefully about what we use, because every component has to fill that compliance scope.
yeah, that's another great tip there when choosing the solution is what is their architecture and which third parties are they dependent on and have processing agreements with, and you've got all the GDPR processing implications there of, well, yeah, I trust you and I trust Microsoft as a data center, but actually if we're using this other might be great, transcription service on GCP or AWS, now you're trusting that and you're trusting Google, you're trusting Amazon or whoever it may be as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk a bit about Numonix because you've got some really unique features. I definitely want to get into filters. Maybe we could start there. What are some of the things you would call out that you do that you think is a bit special or have helped customers kind of achieve their recording goals?
So I would always say the reliability of the platform, because we focus on capture. That's all we do. And we realize, especially not only for compliance, where you have to make sure that everything is recorded, but also from the perspective of making sure that the data resides within the region and that automatically you're able to record what you need to. So there might be tools where you can stop a recording and start and stop, but we provide a lot of native built-in features Some of them include, as I mentioned earlier, a meeting title. So you can say, let's say you have your executive group that is going to record a Monday morning executive meeting, but everything else needs to be recorded, but not that one. You could say only record or don't record this meeting because the organizer is this account and there's the word private or exco or whatever in the
Yeah,
meeting.
like a hash no rec hash, some code that the meeting organizer can use in the subject.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have another feature that we haven't presented in our UI yet, but it will come where you can even do by a category, a color category
Oh,
even
that's clever.
within. So we have that we built for someone once, but we haven't transferred it into the UI yet. But it can be enabled through a config file. Things like that. Things like now I know Teams call queue recording is coming now by Microsoft through a policy, but we've been doing it for years where you can target a queue based on the UPN of the queue or display name or anything like that. So record this queue or don't record it. The don't record has actually been a good one because, again, for GDPR, you might be wanting to say, if a call comes through a certain queue, don't record it. So when you hit the IVR, it's like if you hit, if you do not wish to be recorded, hit 5, and then you get transferred to that queue that then reaches
Oh,
the agent.
that's the same agents but non-recorded queue essentially. That's clever.
Correct. And then we also have, which has proven actually to be a good one, is we have a native Teams app that you can do record on demand as well in a more compliant way. So even if you do want some agents not to record everything all the time, but only record based on a button press, we have that as a native Teams app. You also have PCI muting through it, where you can, mute or insert silence packets during conversations, and GDPR cancel that if you are recorded automatically and someone says stop, you can hit the GDPR cancel, which will then stop the recording and purge any record of it. Or you could use the mute button, which will just silence it thereafter. So at least if someone is using it in a responsible manner or not. So a lot of those good rules. The external meeting party as well. We have filters where you could change different compression. For example, do you want to record in GSM 8000 hertz, which will give you ultra compression of like 9.2 million minutes on 1 TB? Or do you want to go in PCM 16 with split media, where you can have your RxTX, where you have your agent on one stream and the other party on another stream, so you can mute if there's any background noise.
Yeah, or the talk over, you get both sides of the conversation very clearly.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of those good stuff. We have a lot of good stuff coming as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about as they start coming out. I don't want to really, let too many things out because then the pressure starts.
Yeah. We need something else to talk about next time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
and
again, the capture piece.
Yeah, and it's all cloud platform, right? So we've deployed this before and played with it. Like, it's quick to deploy, SaaS based. So there's all of this world is now much easier than it used to be from a sense of testing things out and using them in production.
Yeah, so another great feature we also have, which I think has been a major benefit, is we built a provisioning tool in Azure using Skim. So you can do all your provisioning within Entra. So you can, besides doing the recording policy and assign to an Entra group that you add a user and triggers recording, you can also create this group this app we use Skim. You put your groups in that app, and then it auto provisions our system. So it'll create the users, add the targets,
Nice.
give them the attributes and everything. So managing the system is a matter of just adding and removing a user from an Entra group, which is also, especially the large customers, post 1,000 users, even post 200 users. They really eat that up because it helps them maintain and manage. And from a security point of view, you have one single point to do all your provisioning.
Yeah, with very large orgs, often that AD story is off the HR platforms. They provision a user as going active, and then all that other stuff. So you could automate that completely end to end if it's an AD group, which is really nice.
Exactly. It's a huge benefit, and adding, removing everything, it's one spot that you're doing anything. You don't have to go and say, hey, I need to check this in the platform and then somewhere else. We have both options, because it's part of our enterprise solution, but where you can do it manually as well. So it's really up to the customer. But in my opinion, it's one of our features that I appreciate the most.
Awesome. Well, Michael, thanks for taking us through that recording story. Hopefully everybody listening, it's given them some insight into the different options and how to choose a solution. Just on a personal note, really appreciate all the support you've given us from day one as well, and certainly a lot of the research and background in recording. You're one of the people I go to, so thanks for that.
You're welcome, and thank you for everything you do for the community. I know that you're traveling very, very often. We spoke about this earlier, and I know your family sacrifices a lot for you to be out there and bringing us all this info. So thank you to you as well for everything you do for the community.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Take care.